What's up, upstanders? Dr. O here. And so people are rightfully upset with Trump referring to Chuck Schumer as a Palestinian and also saying that he was no longer Jewish. And I find this interesting on so many fronts. So let's just hop into it. Well, first of all, calling Palestinian is not a slur. Calling somebody a Palestinian is should not be used as a slur in this country, and as part of the Trump administration's overall efforts to dehumanize Palestinians. And quite honestly, there's been efforts to dehumanize Palestinians from multiple administrations over the years, and this is the latest example of that. And so people should be standing up for that on its face. Then on top of that, there's two other points I want to make about this. Number two, it is absolutely anti-Semitic for someone else, particularly who's not, no one should be doing this, but particularly somebody who's not Jewish, to decide who is Jewish or not. This is absolutely going back to Nazi Germany, where it was determined who was Jewish and who was not by people who were not Jewish. This is part of anti-Semitism. This is part of Donald Trump following in Hitler's example. It needs to be called out. And I respect the fact that many people have indeed called this out. Jewish organizations, non-Jewish organizations, people like myself have called out the fact that the term Palestinian is not a slur, and that going back to this idea of you can determine who's Jewish or not is absolutely anti-Semitic. So given that many Palestinians are Muslim, it's almost safe to say that Trump has put out anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in like the same sentence in some way, shape, or form. But there's something else that is interesting to me. This is not the first time that Trump has called somebody a Palestinian. Back in his debate with Biden, he referred to Biden as a bad Palestinian. And there was no real outrage from people outside of people who support a Free Palestine movement. And I think that that's something that people need to be paying attention to, because we shouldn't only be talking about saying someone's a Palestinian as a slur, as we also condemn Trump's anti-Semitism about being Jewish. I wish the same people who are condemning what Trump said now also condemned it during the debate, because it was racist and ignorant then, and it's racist and ignorant now. I do appreciate the fact that people are calling out both instead of only focusing on the "you're not Jewish" comments. But we have to have a certain level of consistency in our society that we do not have. And Trump plays off of that in every way, shape, and form. And so for y'all who are saying that, calling somebody a Palestinian slurs, absolutely, he's going to do it again, and it's going to be playing on people. But this goes to a post I was talking about earlier, where Trump doesn't care about Palestinians, but he also doesn't care about Jewish Americans also, which is why Jewish voters did not support him in large numbers. And I think because they see the signs. But when you throw out this type of language, it proves that you don't care about Jewish people, because you would know historically that questioning somebody's Jewish identity was part of the thing that led to their persecution. Trump doesn't care about that. Trump knows this. Again, Trump is working hard to become this time's Hitler in every way, shape, or form. But a lot of Americans are standing up in many ways. Talk about this a little later, but no one's paying attention to the fact that Guantanamo, they emptied out all the people who were being held there and brought them back to the United States. That's because of our efforts. So again, we need to clamp down on this idea of this continued dehumanization of the Palestinian people. Whether you like their policies or whether you like whatever's happening, whether you take sides this part of the war and so on and so forth, Palestinians are people who deserve to be free and to have their own home. And many of y'all need to stop equating everybody who's Palestinian with Hamas. That's part of your own ignorance, and some of us choose to stay ignorant on that fact. And so whenever people hear Palestinian, they hear Hamas. And whenever they hear Hamas, they hear Palestinians. And most Palestinians had nothing to do with the attacks on October 7th. With those terroristic attacks on October 7th. That's just like saying every white person had something to do with the Oklahoma City bombing. Or that every black person had something to do with the officer who shot those, with the man who shot those police officers in Texas. Now, they do try to paint all of that on black people when stuff like that happens, particularly Black Lives Matter. But most of us know better. So stand up, speak out, call this out. Don't wait until the Palestinian comment is coupled with the anti-Semitism of the "You're not Jewish" comment before we call this out, because it should have been shut down the first time and it wasn't. But I definitely paid attention to that. I don't know if many of you all did, but this is something that's really problematic. And so everybody who's standing up, continue to stand up, continue to speak out, continue to call this out, because Trump and Musk are running an Islamophobic, an anti-black, an anti-immigrant, an anti-Latino, just run down the anti. And as it relates to Jewish Americans, it's an anti-Jewish administration. And that just is what it is. Let's call a thing a thing. Peace.